Good afternoon. Can you hear me, Mr. Hargreaves?
Yes, I can.
Marvellous. Do I call you Mr. Hargreaves or Lieutenant Hargreaves? You're retired, aren't you?
I'm not retired, sir. Lieutenant Hargreaves is fine. I'm an active member still.
You're not retired?
No, sir.
Oh, right. Well, then I will call you Lieutenant Hargreaves. Thank you for joining us. I understand you're in Bermuda at the moment. Is that right? Barbados.
Yes, yes, sir.
Barbados, right. So what's going to happen is that I don't know what you can see of us. Are you seeing me at the moment or just hearing me?
I'm seeing and hearing you, sir.
Marvellous. And can you see the rest of the courtroom?
No, sir.
Right. Well, we'll arrange that in a moment. All right. So Mr. Bissessar, who's one of counsel for the inquiry, is going to summarise your evidence, all right? And then there'll be a few questions from Mr. Maharaj and then others as it arises. We will definitely dispose of your evidence this afternoon, all right? So if you listen carefully to what Mr. Bissessar says and his summary, if you agree with it, hopefully you will, you'll tell us that. If not, you'll point out anything that's wrong about it, all right? And we'll take it from there. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair. Lieutenant Edric Hargreaves, whose regimental number is 15040, has been a member of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, the TTCG, for over 22 years. He became a commissioned officer on 31st October 2013, and his substantive posting in the TTCG since his commissioning was diving officer. Lieutenant Hargreaves gave a written signed statement dated 15th August 2022 to the Commission. This is at WB 65, but had not responded to requests from the Commission to be interviewed, and a witness summons was issued for him to attend before the Commission. The written statement provided to the Commission was incomplete, and notwithstanding written requests by the Secretary to the Commission on 25th August 2022, 20th September 2022, and 28th September 2022, these were never provided, and there was a gap between paragraphs 18 and 20. However, on 29th November 2022, Lieutenant Hargreaves did provide the requested pages, and the completed witness statement is at Supplemental Witness Bundle 3006.
Remind me, would you please, once again, where the original statement was?
The original is at WB Witness Bundle 65. Good. In his witness statement, Lieutenant Hargreaves certified that all the facts in his witness statement are true and correct. Lieutenant Hargreaves' principal duties as diving officer included responsibility for the management, safety, and equipment of the TTCG diving department, performing exploration or extraction duties, supervising and training TTCG divers, and performing activities related to underwater search and rescue. Lieutenant Hargreaves says that he has 22 years experience of scuba diving and is qualified under the Professional Association of Diving Instructors, PADI, with membership number 269088. He has various certificates including Rescue Diver dated 21st February 2010, Dive Master dated 31st March 2010, Emergency First Responder dated 28th August 2012, and Master Scuba Diver dated 27th July 2015. Lieutenant Hargreaves says he was contacted at TTCG on Friday 25th February 2022 at approximately 4:07 p.m. and informed of the accident, and at 8:43 p.m. he arrived at berth 6 with 10 members of the TTCG diving department and was apprised by Catherine Balgisoon, who identified her team members involved in the recovery operation. She also identified persons with first-hand knowledge of the accident, including Michael Kurban, who Lieutenant Hargreaves interviewed. Lieutenant Hargreaves' evidence is that it was recommended to him by the diving enlisted senior ratings that no scuba rescue attempt should be made because, firstly, the space provided no room for maneuverability. Secondly, that the TTCG possessed inappropriate equipment. Thirdly, the cause of the accident was still unconfirmed. And fourthly, there was still hazardous material in the pipeline. Lieutenant Hargreaves says that these all posed serious health and safety challenges which could not be ignored. Lieutenant Hargreaves explained that he pointed out the limitations and potential hazards to Catherine Balkisoon, and that the TTCG diving department was not trained for nor possessed the specialty equipment needed for a rescue operation. He said he advised Catherine Balkisoon that a rescue operation of this magnitude would require commercial equipment, such as a dive helmet with ship air supply. Lieutenant Hargreaves said that TTCG divers were only trained to perform operational scuba diving and not commercial diving. Lieutenant Hargreaves says that after this conversation with Catherine Balkisoon, she sought out the assistance of commercial vessels which took over the dive rescue operation with the TTCG on standby, and at 1:10 a.m. on Saturday morning, all TTCG operations ceased. Lieutenant Hargreaves recalls that Ms. Balkisoon told him that if Paria required any further assistance from the TTCG dive team, he would be notified, and she expressed her gratitude to the TTCG and said that its presence was no longer required. Lieutenant Hargreaves says that all TTCG personnel departed berth 6, arriving in Staubles Bay in Chaguaramas at approximately 3:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. He says that on Sunday, the 27th of February 2022, a virtual meeting was convened with Paria, and he and Chief Petty Officer M. Jarrett discussed the rescue mission prepared by LMCS. He said that what was proposed created further opportunity for greater casualties. He said an alternative method was then decided on, and a decision was made to have the TTCG diving department return on Monday, 28th February 2022 to offer assistance. Lieutenant Hargreaves did not, however, say what was the alternative method decided upon. On Monday, 20th February 2022 at 4:55 a.m., a team of 7 TTCG divers departed Staubles Bay for berth 6. Lieutenant Hargreaves says that the operation was no longer one of a rescue but a recovery exercise, as the missing divers were presumed to be deceased due to the length of time they were missing underwater. He concludes his witness statement in the following terms. Paragraph 19, he says, "At no time during the period Friday, 25th February 2022 to Thursday, 3rd March 2022, was either I, any member of the TTCG diving department, or any other member of the TTDF armed with weapons. Further, neither I nor any member of the TTCG diving department nor any other member of the TTDF, either physically or through coercion, by being armed with any weapons, prevented persons from going into the pipe to attempt a rescue." And at paragraph 20, he says, "As far as I am aware, the decision to prevent persons from attempting a rescue was made by Paria personnel and not by either myself, any member of the TTDF diving department, or by any member of the TTDF. Neither I nor any member of the TTCG diving department nor any member of the TTDF had the requisite authority to do so." He says that the decision by Paria, however, was based on the assessment by the TTCG diving department that an attempt at a rescue can have severe health and safety implications, as stated in paragraphs 9 and 10 of his witness statement. Good. Lieutenant Hargreaves, can you confirm whether what I have presented is a true and accurate summary of your evidence?
Yes, sir. Except the part where you said that in August I presented the document with incorrect, with the paragraph missing. That was submitted. It was not my fault that what was sent was not accurately received.
Okay. Chairman, before Lieutenant Hargreaves continues, perhaps I should just indicate that my recollection is that the witness was not put under oath. So before he says anything more, perhaps that can be done. Yes.
Quite so. Yes, you weren't asked to take the oath. Perhaps that can be done now. Thank you.
Lieutenant Hargreaves, please repeat after me. When I said I, you will insert your name and repeat after. I,
Lieutenant Edric Hargreaves,
solemnly swear that the evidence I shall give to the Commission in this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hargreaves. Can you just confirm, first of all, leave aside the question of your statement for one moment, all right? I'll come back to that in a second, if I may. But what the summary that has been read to you, with that caveat, do you agree it's an accurate reflection of what you've told us?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And I think you're making the point that in the original statement that you provided, or your office provided, there was an omission. It stopped at paragraph 80 or halfway through paragraph 18, missing out 19 and resumed at paragraph 20. And you're saying that that wasn't your fault, that's an administrative error or something like that. Is that right?
Yes, sir. All
right. Well, I take it that you didn't do it deliberately, so you can rest assured I'm not going to hold it against you, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. So one thing I wanted to ask before any other questions are asked of you, can you just help me about this? Do you have your statement in front of you?
Yes, sir.
Right. Do you have anything else in front of you?
No, sir.
No.
Which
statement is it? Marvellous. Good. Well, paragraph 13, by all means look at it if you wish, please. You'll see that you deal there with a meeting that you had, a virtual meeting that you had on the 27th, Sunday the 27th of February. Can you just tell me,
yes, sir,
that virtual meeting that you had, was that in the morning or the afternoon?
So honestly, I believe it was in the afternoon.
In the afternoon. Can you give us any sort of idea between midday and the evening at, say, 6? What sort of time?
I would believe it was right after lunch.
Right.
Yeah, I believe it would have been right after lunch on the Sunday after.
I had to ask the others this. When do you take your lunch?
I believe between 12 and 1.
Right. So sometime after 1 o'clock, you'd have had this meeting, you think?
I believe so, yes.
Right, marvellous. Thank you. I'm not going to hold you to it, but just give us some idea. That's your best recollection, that meeting was held sometime after 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Yes? So this is getting on to 48 hours after the incident, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Maharaj. Mr. Maharaj is going to ask you some questions now.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Hargreaves. I have a few questions for you, and I'll be glad if you could assist us, please. I want to go to your witness statement on which you state the grounds on which you advise that no rescue attempt should be made, and that is at paragraph 9 and 9 of your witness statement at page 3011.
Right. In when I was speaking about no rescue attempt would be made, I was speaking in terms of the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard Diving Department.
Yes, but at paragraph 9, you stated that it was recommended to me by the diving enlisted senior ratings that no scuba attempt should be made. This was because the space in question provided no room for maneuverability. We possessed inappropriate equipment. The cause of the incident was still unconfirmed, and there was still hazardous material contained within the pipeline. These all pose serious health and safety challenge which could not be ignored. So I want to ask you questions in relation to each of these grounds that you stated.
Yes.
There. Okay?
Yes, sir.
The first ground you said that no scuba attempt should be made because the space in the pipeline provided no room for maneuverability. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. So what I want to ask you is that in paragraph 8 of your witness statement, you stated that you had a conversation. Mr. Kurban stated that he was the person who had recovered the drowned diver, one Mr. Christopher Budram, from the pipeline. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So you had known, you were aware that Christopher Budram had just emerged from the pipeline.
Yes, sir.
Now, Budram, did you know whether Budram had scuba diving equipment or
No, sir.
no? And you were also aware that Michael Kurban, because you spoke to Michael Kurban,
Yes, I did.
and were you aware that Michael Kurban had also gone into the pipeline after Budram
No, sir.
came out?
No, sir.
But if you were aware, if you had then become aware that Michael Kurban had gone into the pipeline and he went with scuba, would you still maintain that scuba would have been unsafe for a person to go into the pipeline?
I would like to ask, when you say for who to go into the pipeline, because when I'm referring to who, I am referring to in our SOPs as the Trans-American Coast Guard Diving Department, we are not required to do such a rescue. So if that, in a sense that the required information concerning scuba, and if somebody wanted to attempt it, that was okay and well with their SOPs. But in the SOPs of the Trans-American Coast Guard Diving Department, we're not such qualified to do such a rescue.
So what you were, in effect, what you meant then, that no Coast Guard officer should go into the pipeline?
Yes, sir.
But you're saying that if there were other persons who were prepared to go into the pipeline, you did not see a problem with that?
No, sir, because at the time, as I said, I was there to assist with any operation that was being would have got through. And this was my clear indication that the Trans-American Coast Guard is not qualified or equipped for such. But again, we were there to render assistance because that is our due diligence of the Defense Force or the Coast Guard Department to render assistance in any capabilities that they wanted.
Before you carry on, can I interpret that to mean this, Mr. Hargreaves, that you would not order any one of your divers to effect a rescue using scuba equipment?
In such of a pipeline?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
In that scenario, yes, that you were faced with, you would not feel it. You would not be right. It would not be right for you to order someone to do it. But if someone volunteered, that would be a different matter. Is that what I'm to understand?
No, sir. Even in volunteering, I would have to stand down that request because, again, as I said, based on our SOPs, requires sufficient qualification and experience. And nobody in my department was even such qualified or have the experience to perform such a rescue. So again, even if a volunteer came forward from the diving department, it would have been said.
So you wouldn't have let even one of your men, even if he had volunteered, go into the pipeline with scuba equipment. Is that what I'm to understand? No. Right, thank you.
Yes.
But you wouldn't, am I also to understand, you would not stand in the way of somebody outside of your team voluntarily saying, look, I'm happy to go and do it?
Roger, sir, I would not stand in the way of a rescue attempt.
No. And I suppose if he was related to somebody in the pipeline, you'd be even less inclined to stand in his way.
Correct, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
And you said as part of your grounds that with scuba equipment, there would be a problem of maneuverability in the pipeline.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But Christopher Budram, were you aware that Christopher Budram had scuba and he maneuvered himself out of the pipeline?
No, sir.
But you know he came out of the pipeline?
Well, that is what I was told. that he was rescued on top of the pipeline. I didn't know he was inside the pipeline. That's all I was told. I didn't know he
Oh, I
went into the pipeline.
see. You did not know that Christopher Boudram was inside of the pipeline.
No, sir.
When was the first time you knew that he was inside? Well, at any time after, did you find out that he was inside of the pipeline?
I believe this would have been after he went. I think after he went and said, or somebody said that he was inside the pipeline. I didn't know he was inside the pipeline. Nobody told me he actually went into the pipeline. I was told he was sucked into the pipeline and he was rescued coming out.
So
That's what I was told.
Okay. So you were aware that he was rescued from inside the pipeline?
Yes, sir.
And before you arrived at Paria that day, did you know that the divers were in the pipeline?
No, sir.
You didn't know they were in the pipeline?
No, sir.
Did you know anybody was in the pipeline? Anyone was in the pipeline?
From the information which came through the Coast Guard operations, that 4 divers were missing by Paria-LMCS, and we were to go and make an assessment to safer rescue. Only later in the evening, then we were told that they were sucked inside the pipeline.
So
that was later in the night.
Okay. So based on what you are telling us, Coast Guard officers are not trained to dive into a pipeline?
No, sir.
No. And they do not have the equipment to dive into a pipeline, correct?
No, sir. Correct, sir.
Right. So if when you left to go on this mission, you knew that you were going on a mission to rescue divers from inside a pipeline, would you have gone?
It would have been still my due diligence to go and render assistance because the Trans-World Coast Guard to respond to all seagoing needs. It is my job as part of our search and rescue environment to go and render assistance. But at the same time,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, what I'm saying is that this is our due diligence as the Trans-World Coast Guard diving department to go and render assistance and search and rescue purposes.
But the
yes,
sorry, but the
yes, we may not.
Sorry.
Right. So yes, we may not be qualified to such, but at the same time, we still have to be there to provide assistance in the event of anything that they needed.
But the assistance you had to provide was to assist in the rescue from the pipeline.
Correct, sir. So the assistance would have been in that if it is such an attempt was made, we would have been there to help assist, not to go in, but probably be around the area in the water in that capacity to render assistance to the other divers while the attempt is being made, but not to enter the pipeline.
Yeah, so that I'm clear, please. First of all, you were unaware that Mr. Boudram had been sucked into the pipeline and had made his way out. Is that right or wrong?
That is correct, sir. I was not aware.
Right. All you knew is that he was near the mouth of the pipeline and someone had helped to haul him out of from that position.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is what I was.
That is what you were proceeding until you came to learn that the other 4 remaining divers were still in the pipeline.
Yes, sir.
All right. And it was on that basis that you were, as it were, operating on a misapprehension of the facts when you first joined the boat to go to the berth 5 and 6. Is that right? We know that they were sucked into the pipeline, so you were not aware of that when you gathered your divers together and your equipment and headed off back to berth 6 in order to effect a rescue. You didn't know that at that time?
No, sir.
Right. And it's only when you got there that you came to find out that that was the position?
Yes, sir.
So you were not aware then that Christopher Boudram was sucked into the pipeline with scuba diving equipment and that he
No, sir.
maneuvered himself out of the pipeline with scuba diving equipment. You were not aware of
No,
that?
sir. No, sir.
Over a period of 2 hours.
Over a period of 2 hours. You were not aware of that?
No, sir.
No. And you were also not aware that after he was rescued, Michael Kurban went in with scuba with an umbilical and went 15 feet in the horizontal part. He went down the riser and he went 15 feet in the horizontal part of the pipeline, underwater. You were not aware of that?
No, sir.
But you spoke to Kurban when you went there?
Yeah. Yes, sir. But he did not interpret to me that he went into the pipeline. He didn't tell me that.
He didn't tell you that?
It's Ms. Balkisun who told me that he was the one that went and rescued Mr. Budram.
But were you interested to find out how that rescue took place?
So honestly, at that time, I can't say if I was interested because he was behaving very erratic as I stated. And he wasn't really somebody to be like talking face to face because he was using a lot of explicits. And like I said, I didn't really want to have that energy because at the same time, I understand the situation. But like I say, if it was a conversation of what it is he was doing, then probably yes. But at the time, that was not the discussion at that time.
But Mr. Hargrave, you gave an opinion here in paragraph 9 that it was not safe for anyone to do a rescue in the pipeline. So I'm asking, one of the things you relied upon was the question of scuba diving equipment cannot be used. In effect, what you were saying, you need commercial air supply and diving equipment. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
And were you not interested in talking to Christopher Budram? You were there when he came out of the pipeline?
No, sir.
But were you not interested in talking to Kurban to find out whether he knew of anybody who went in the pipeline? Did he go into the pipeline?
As I said, sir, Mr. Kurban, when I saw him, he was dressed in a blue jumper, and he told me, yes, he was one of the rescue divers that was there, and he rescued Mr. Budram. But at the same time, as I said, he was in a very erratic state, and using a lot of explicits, and asking why it is we don't go in the pipeline, why it is we don't try to help or anything like that. And he just eventually he walked off, and that was the last I saw of him.
Well, according to your grounds, would you agree with me that your decision not to have a rescue was influenced by the fact that the TTCG did not have appropriate equipment and was not trained for that purpose?
For the grounds of the Trans-Siberian Coast Guard, yes. We are not trained for that. So no, I would not have attempted my team to do such a rescue.
But you knew whilst you were there that commercial equipment was available for any diving to be done in the pipeline?
Yes, sir, because when I came, I saw divers in the water, and they were attaching a riser onto the pipeline from what I was observing. So yes, they were there doing work.
And as a matter of fact, you advised Catherine Balkisun that she should get commercial equipment if persons are to go into the pipeline, commercial diving equipment, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And as a matter of fact, whilst you were there, you saw that she contacted commercial boats nearby, and commercial boats took over the rescue operation.
Well, that is what I was looking at. Yes, sir. I saw them in the water. They were performing duties as a diver. They had on helmet and umbilical, and their boats were there, and they were being used. I don't know if it was I don't know if that was the rescue operation, but they were being used.
But they were trying to do a rescue.
I can't say if they were trying to do a rescue, sir, but I know they were there in the water.
But
when I came, they were there in the water.
But Did you prevent persons who were trying to do a rescue in the pipeline
No, sir.
from going into from doing that rescue?
No, sir, I don't have the requisite qualifications to stop such a rescue.
Did Paria instruct you to prevent persons from going into the pipeline?
No, sir.
No?
No, sir.
Paria never gave you instructions to prevent persons from doing a rescue in the pipeline? From within the pipeline? You were telling us on oath that?
Yes, sir. The only person I spoke to was Ms. Balkisoon that said night. I didn't speak to nobody else on that night. But she was the person who I would have assumed being the incident commander, based on she was the senior supervisor at the time on site. And I was dealing all information through her alone.
And according to your evidence, she did not give you instructions on behalf of Paria to prevent persons from going into the pipeline?
No, sir, she did not.
So when you say at paragraph, the last paragraph of your witness statement,
right,
at paragraph 20, I want you to read that paragraph. It's on the screen.
Right. As far as I'm aware, the decision to prevent persons from attempting a rescue was made by Paria and not by myself, nor either member of the Trans-Tobago Defense Force Diving Department.
Okay, I want you to read paragraph 20 to yourself, and then I'll question you.
Yes, sir.
It's in the first sentence, as far as I'm aware, the decision to prevent persons from attempting a rescue was made by Paria personnel, not by either myself or any member of the TTDF diving department or any member of the TTDF. What do you mean by that?
Right. So what I mean, sir, is that the timings that I came, when I was speaking to Ms. Balkisoon, I wouldn't have known what happened between the hours, but when the incident happened to the time I arrived. So I could only speak on the accounts of after I came, which was at 8:43 p.m. And at that time, I can say that we did not get any instructions to prevent persons. If an instruction came before, that would have been probably on Paria's side, but not from the Trans-Tobago Coast Guard or the Defense Force. So that is what I'm stating. But I should have put based on the timing, because as I said, we did not prevent it in that time.
Mr. Lieutenant Hargraves, I'm suggesting to you in paragraph 20 of your witness statement that you have stated that Paria made a decision to prevent persons from attempting to go in the pipeline, and that that decision was made on the advice given by you. You don't agree?
Advice given? No, sir.
Okay.
The advice I said, if advice was given, is because, like I said, the Trans-Tobago Coast Guard is not qualified. Paria cannot make a decision based on my assessment for my team.
But listen to me what you said in the last. The decision by Paria, however, was based on the assessment by the TTCG diving department, and that an attempt at rescue can have severe health and safety implications, as stated in paragraph 9 and 10.
Right, sir. So understand what I'm trying to say is that because the Trans-Tobago Coast Guard made an assessment, Paria probably went with that assessment. But you see now, as I said, we are not trained for such. Right? We are not trained. So if they made an assessment if they made a decision based on our assessment, I cannot do anything about that. But what I did know is that I did tell them is that we cannot make such. Because at the same time, the environment was unsafe for us, it was unclear for us, and we cannot do such. if they made an opinion and said, hey, well, if the Coast Guard is not doing it, then nobody should do it, that is on their parcel, not the Trans-Tobago Coast Guard or the Trans-Tobago Defence Force.
But if the Coast Guard does not have any experience in diving in a pipeline and does not do commercial diving in a pipeline or commercial diving, how could it make an assessment of whether diving in a pipeline was safe or not? Could you explain that to us? How could it do that if it has no experience, not trained to dive in a pipeline? You as an officer also not trained to dive in a pipeline. You have never done it with commercial, and you have never done it with scuba. How could you make an assessment whether diving in that pipeline was safe or unsafe?
Again, sir, the assessment was for my team of the Trans-Tobago Coast Guard Diving Department. It was not for anybody else. If somebody else came and said, hey, we want to make an attempt, we have been there to assist.
So, can I just follow this? You were being asked to provide a team of divers to effect a rescue. That's the first thing, isn't it? We agree about that, don't we, right? You're saying, from what I understand you have said so far, is that you did not understand the full implications or the requirements for that rescue until you got there and made an assessment of your own. Is that right?
Yes.
Your assessment was, first of all, that your team were just scuba divers. I say just, obviously experienced scuba divers, but nonetheless just scuba divers. That's the position, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Operational scuba divers, yes, sir.
As a result of what you then discovered about the nature of this rescue, it was clear to you that it would be quite improper to invite any of your people to effect such a rescue.
Yes, sir.
That did not mean that there weren't others who might have been very well qualified to carry out such a rescue, did it?
Correct, sir.
And if there were such others, it was a matter for them, together with Paria and whoever else, to make their own assessment. It did not involve you. Is that
correct,
right?
sir? Right. Yes,
so
sir.
When you say, as far as I am aware, the decision to prevent persons from attempting a rescue was made by Paria personnel and not by either myself or any member of the TDDF diving department, what you mean is that you had no part to play in a decision not to attempt a rescue by others.
Yes, sir.
And when you say
yes,
the decision by Paria, however, was based on an assessment by your diving department that an attempt at a rescue can have severe health and safety implications, as stated in your earlier paragraphs, what you mean by that is any decision that Paria might have made in relation to that was in relation to your team and only your team. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Right. So,
yes, sir.
So the net result is this then, isn't it? Is that insofar as you had dealings with Paria about effecting a rescue, you were asked to do so. On assessment, you decided your people were not best placed to do so, and you told them that.
Yes, sir.
But you did not tell them, did you, that they should not effect a rescue with people who were qualified?
Correct, sir, because that did not, they never indicated to me that they had persons qualified.
And
notwithstanding
your own qualifications and experience, you were in no position to make an assessment of whether or not commercial divers who were on site were the right people to carry out such a rescue. Were you?
Yes, sir.
Right, so if anybody at Paria or anywhere else relied on your recommendation not to effect a rescue, they would have misunderstood you, because all you meant by that was that they should not effect a rescue with your people or scuba
Correct, sir.
divers. That's it, isn't it? That's what we should take away from your evidence. Yes, thank you.
I think I should not. I want to go to the aspect of your evidence and the evidence in the matter about the TTCG, the Coast Guard, being armed with weapons that day. Could you assist us?
Yes,
when you got on the scene at Paria, there was another Coast Guard vessel. Am I correct?
No, sir.
No. How many vessels accompanied you from Sturblesby to Paria? Was it one?
It was only one, sir.
Only one?
It was one, sir, and it had a ship. It had a vessel. A ship was in the vicinity in the event of further assistance. It had a ship in the vicinity, but small vessel as an interceptor was only one, sir.
It didn't have a Coast Guard vessel in the vicinity of your Coast Guard vessel when you arrived?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Did the vessel you were in, were the officers armed?
Yes, sir, I would say they were armed, so I did make an error in my last statement stating that they would not know weapons. So yes, I must say the ship's crew, they were armed with weapons.
Who was in charge of that ship? Yeah. Before I go on, you said there was, who was in charge of that ship that you said was in the waters? The Coast Guard vessel.
The big ship, the big vessel?
Yeah.
I believe the officer in charge, the captain, would have been Lieutenant Joseph.
And do you know what the mission of that ship was there that day?
No, sir.
Did you
No, sir.
communicate with that ship? With the person?
No, sir.
There is evidence in this case that has been adduced by witnesses that they were prevented by the Coast Guard from entering into the pipeline to effect a rescue.
At what time that would have been conveyed, sir?
Well, at various times, but during the period you were there, did you see any attempt being made to rescue divers, rescue persons from the pipeline?
Say that over, sir. I don't understand what you
During
say.
the period of time you were at
Paria.
the scene, at Paria,
Right.
did you prevent, well, first I should ask you, did you see any rescue efforts being made or trying to be made for persons to be rescued from the pipeline?
What I can say, sir, is that when I arrived, I saw divers in the water. So I would have presumed that probably as they were attaching the riser on, probably a rescue attempt was being formulated of such. And that was the only thing I could have said, because they were divers, commercial divers in the water at the time when I came. But to say if a rescue was being formulated or being performed, no, I cannot say. But I know they were men in the water, and we were watching them while they were performing their task of putting on the rice at the time.
When you prepared your witness statement, were you aware that there was the allegation being made against the Coast Guard that there were attempts made by the Coast Guard to prevent persons from attempting rescue from the pipeline?
Yes, I heard the allegations, so yes.
Right. And did you think that you had to in making your statement, you were making a statement on behalf of the Coast Guard?
Yes, sir.
And did you think that you had to make inquiries about that to try to help the Commission to get to the truth of the matter? Did you make any such, did you check the records? Did you make any such inquiries?
Make such inquiries from who?
From the Coast Guard. From the Coast Guard records. Wouldn't the Coast Guard have records of what happened on duty when vessels are on a certain mission?
Yes, sir. So what I would say is that the vessel would have a vessel number, and it would have a coxswain. So which means somebody to drive the vessel, a coxswain. The crew falls under a different operational department called squadron. They are given taskings in a different nature. To my recollection, when I went down, there were no other Coast Guard vessel in the area, at the side of the berthing area, in that capacity. Because, like I said, we reached down there minutes to 9 the night. So I cannot say if a Coast Guard vessel was there from before. I can't say for that. All I knew is that I had to wait on a vessel to be escorted down to the site.
But would the Coast Guard have records? If there was a Coast Guard vessel there, right? Assuming there was a Coast Guard vessel there, would the Coast Guard have a record of that vessel being there on that particular date?
Yes, I would have a chronological record of vessels that would be...
And they would have a record of who were on that vessel.
Yes, sir.
And who were in charge of that vessel.
Yes,
correct?
sir.
And what
yes,
activities they were involved in.
I can't say about the activities. Because again, as I said.
But wouldn't they have a log of what mission they was on and what they were doing?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and they would have a record of whether there was guns and whatever it is.
Well, sir, the SOPs one of such of the Transmittal Coast Guard squadron departments is that once you slip berth to go to sea, you are asked to be armed. You are armed as a Coast Guard officer attending to nature out at sea. So yes, they would have weapons to carry out their duties. As such, they were given instructions to do such, to go and attempt or to go and see whether what it was going on. So the squadron department that goes to sea, they are all armed.
Okay. So let me get to the final aspect of it. So according to you, you left Stoble's Bay with the intention of doing a rescue, correct? Assisting in a rescue, okay?
Assisting in a rescue, yes, sir.
And you thought this rescue would have been in open waters, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
When you got there, you found out it was not a rescue in open waters, correct?
Yes, sir.
And therefore, as far as you were concerned, you considered you all were not trained for that, you have no equipment for that, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what was your mission what was your mission then at Paria for the rest of the evening and into the night and the early hours of the morning? What was your mission?
To render any assistance that they would be needed. I was given instructions to stay. I was given instructions to stay on site and to render any assistance.
Who gave you
that
those
Paria or any? Was that?
Who gave you those instructions?
Those instructions would have come from the duty commanding officer.
So the Coast Guard commander gave you instructions to remain on site to give whatever assistance is necessary, or was it assistance only in respect of rescuing?
Assistance to rescuing. That is our main purpose.
Well, when you went there, you could not rescue because you could not assist in rescuing. So what was your mission there, remaining there? Was it to help out Paria in carrying out instructions?
No, sir.
No. Was it to help in rescuing?
It was to help in rescuing, yes,
But you could not help in rescuing because you cannot rescue by diving into a pipeline.
Correct.
So how could you help in the rescue?
Because that is the role of the Transylvania Coast Guard in any seagoing nature. We are there to assist. And if it is, we have to stay there and see what is going on. We were there to assist. As I told Ms. Balgisoon, if any assistance they needed in anything, we are here.
Any assistance, who needed? Paria needed? Or LMCS needed? Any assistance, who needed?
Anybody who wanted assistance, they could have asked for it.
So anybody who wanted to go and dive in the pipeline, you would assist for them to dive in the pipeline?
I would assist, not for me to dive in the pipeline, if they wanted to go and dive in the pipeline.
But it had people who were saying that they wanted to dive in the pipeline. Do you know that?
Well, sir, up to this time, when we were there, nobody came and told us we wanted to attempt to dive in the pipeline.
I have no further questions for this.
Just taking stock for a moment, please. You, I believe, arrived with your team of 10 scuba diving rescuers at about 9:15 that evening.
Yes, sir.
That you will have had well in mind was well over 3 hours after Mr. Boudram had come out of the pipe. You knew that?
No, sir.
I'm sorry, you didn't know that?
Wait, just you're saying that 3 hours?
I'm asking you if you knew that Mr. Boudram, the man who had been rescued from the pipe, had come out about 3 hours plus before you arrived.
No, I didn't know that, sir.
Well, why wouldn't you have asked?
I was told by Ms. Balgisoon when I got there.
You were told what?
That Mr. Boudram was one of the guys who was rescued. When I got there, she told me that.
You would have wanted to know, surely, how long before he had been rescued. Wouldn't you?
Well, sir, I did ask to attempt to talk to the individual, but they said he was on this.
Forget him, right? Forget Mr. Boudram. He's been whisked off to hospital. I want to know, please, you're going there to effect a rescue. Now, I appreciate you couldn't because you didn't have the right people, and I'll come to that in a minute. But I want to understand, you see, presumably you would have wanted to know, first of all, when did this accident happen? What time? Second, did they have breathing equipment when the accident happened? Third, what time did Mr. Boudram come out of the pipe? Fourth, how long since then to now has he been out of the pipe? All of these must have been relevant factors for you to estimate whether you were prepared to even consider a rescue of your own people, by your own people. Surely. Now, you may not remember doing that, but surely you must have done.
Well, sir, I believe at the time, questions was asked, but at the same time, it's based on what answers was given. So, yes, we may have asked it, but I'll be honest, I really can't remember at that time, because as I said, it was late in the night, and there were lots of confusion on. I did ask about Mr. Boudram, and he said that he was at the hospital. And I did question if it is we could go and interview him. And I believe I was turned down. I can't say, but I can't remember who, because they didn't tell us which hospital he was or anything like
You
that.
were turned down?
But, well, they told us he couldn't be interviewed at this time because he was at the hospital.
Who told you that?
I can't remember, sir.
Was it the lady?
But I really can't remember who it was, if it was Ms. Balkisu. Right. But I know I did ask about his welfare and how was he, and they said that he was a little shaken up.
Well, because you would have regarded it as important to have got from the person who's just emerged from the pipe such information as he might have been able to give you if you were going to send anybody or allow anybody to go into the pipe. I follow that. But anyway, are you telling us that you did not appreciate that between the time that this accident happened and your arrival at berth 6, that 6 hours had passed?
No, sir, because when I got the initial call...
Never mind about the because. Is it a yes or a no to that? You can give me the because in a minute. Are you saying that you did not know, no one told you that there was a 6-hour gap between the accident happening and your arrival of your 10-man team arriving to effect a rescue? Did you know that or not?
I would say I did not know fully, because when I got the call after 4 the afternoon, I was just told of an incident that 4 divers was missing.
Yeah.
And, right, so that's what I'm saying, that I was aware, but I was not aware of the detailed information at the time.
This is not detailed. Forgive me, Mr. Hargreaves. You're an extraordinarily experienced diving expert, certainly with scuba, with many, many years and many qualifications, only a few of which have been read out by Mr. Bissessar. But anybody who wants to look can have a look online. You've got a large number of qualifications as a diver and a huge amount of experience. You know more than most that anybody who is underwater, even as an experienced diver, has limited time.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And it follows from that that you, as a first-line rescuer, would have wanted to have effected a rescue, if it was possible, as soon as possible. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, one of the things you would want to know, beyond anything else, is when did this happen? How long is it? How long have they been missing? Surely that is the... If not the first thing, it's got to be at least the first 3 things you'd want to know.
Well, sir, actually I did. But again, the information coming through to the operations department, they only indicated to me that when the incident happened, which I got the call at after 4, that it happened, I believe it happened, could be about after 2 minutes to 3 in the afternoon, that incident happened at Paria. So yes, my questions would have been, how long would have been missing and how long again in that sense. But again, the information was not detailed. And for a diver of my nature to get detailed information, because it must have the detailed information to perform such a rescue, at least you'll understand your parameters in what you would have attempted. And it's only when we understood that they were sucked into the pipeline, then we realized that, okay.
Forgive me, forgive me, I'm going to stop you because, you know, in a way, it's not really. I'm not really interested in that level of detail.
Okay, sir.
I simply want to know from you, and it is a pretty straightforward question, Lieutenant. Either you knew it was 6 hours had passed, or you didn't.
No, sir, I didn't know it was 6 hours ago.
Right, okay. Anyhow, the fact is we now know it was. And obviously that would have, had you known, would have affected your view about things, all right? In the event, you identified 4 separate matters that you thought were important to reject any question of your people being able to go and effect a rescue, correct? 4
yes, sir.
Things you identified. One was this was a confined space. That is to say, that what you describe it as, there was no room for manoeuvrability. Somebody couldn't turn around in the pipe, could they?
Yes, sir, because based on the size of the equipment that we use, Our BCD is 18 inches in width. And
You made it even more restrictive.
Correct, sir. So once you have on the right equipment, yes, it would have been very difficult, especially with fins.
Mr. Hargreaves, I'm not criticising your assessment. I think they're entirely fair points, all right? I just want to address them, if I may. All right? First one is that you say that there was no room for manoeuvrability. And part of the reason why you observed that was because your people were not trained in confined space rescue, were they?
Yeah. Correct, sir.
Right. So if you had someone who was trained in confined space rescue, that would have dealt with that issue for you, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir. I believe that would have...
Second point, that you didn't have the necessary equipment. You said you had inappropriate equipment, which you've identified to us and to Mr. Maharaj. And that is the truth, isn't it? You didn't have the appropriate equipment.
Yes, sir.
But there were others who were there who did, weren't there? That's right, isn't it? You have to say yes or no. Yeah. So there were. Sir. So that dealt with that point, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
Right. The third thing you identified was that you were unaware of the cause of the incident, or it was still unconfirmed. Is that right? You didn't know what had actually caused these men to be sucked into the pipe, did you?
Correct, sir. No, sir, I did not know.
Did anyone say to you the words Delta P?
No, sir.
You're looking quizzical. Do you know what Delta P is?
Yes, I noticed differential pressure, yes, sir.
Right, differential pressure, exactly. Did anyone suggest to you that the reason why these men were in the pipe was because they got sucked into there because of a differential pressure?
No, sir.
Did it occur to you that it might be that they were in there because of differential pressure?
No, sir.
So you had no answer to that question as to what might have caused the incident?
Yes, sir, because at the time nobody was clear-cut to say, well, what caused the incident.
All right, fair enough. All right.
So nobody could really...
Leave that one aside. Fourthly, that there was still hazardous material contained within the pipeline.
Yes, sir.
Where did you get that from?
I was told, I believe Ms. Balkisoon, because they said it was an oil riser, so oil would have been lodged in the pipeline itself.
Right.
And I know with oil and the diving equipment is not best of friends, I would say, because one, it malfunctions the equipment, and it is kind of difficult to breathe in scuba with oil in the water.
Right. Well, leaving aside scuba, we've set that to one side. Your view is they shouldn't go in with scuba equipment. But given that there was now top quality equipment for commercial diving available, such as hoses and full head masks and or helmets if necessary, all of that, that would have dealt with your concerns about hazardous material being in the pipeline, would it not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the only thing then that I take away from this that you were concerned about and remain concerned about was the fact that nobody, as far as you were concerned, had confirmed to you what had caused the accident.
Correct, sir.
Right, very well. Thank you very much. I don't oh yes, there's one other thing I did want to ask you about from your statement. Yes, on Sunday the 27th of February, paragraph 13 of your statement, please. On Sunday the 27th of February, you said that there was a virtual meeting, and I asked you about this a little before, all right? But the upshot of that meeting, you knew by then that no rescue mission had actually been performed, don't you?
No, sir.
You didn't know that?
No, sir.
So you mean when you had this virtual meeting, along with your CPO, who's CPO?
Chief Jarrett. Chief Petty Officer.
Chief Petty Officer?
Yes,
right.
Sir.
Chief Petty Officer Jarrett, you and he sat down together in a virtual meeting with whom?
It would have been members of LMCS and the Paria Health and Safety team.
Can you remember who was there?
I believe Mr. Piper was there. There was someone from Heritage. I can't remember her name. offhand. The LMCS, I think it was the owner.
Kazim Ali.
Yes, he was there, and
All right, I think we know which meeting you're talking about then, fine. Anyway, these people were there when you had this virtual meeting with them.
yes, sir.
And there was discussion that was there that the rescue mission was prepared by LMCS.
Yes, sir.
Right. And you say this, however, that method which LMCS proposed to utilise created further opportunity for greater casualties.
Yes, sir.
That was your opinion, was it?
Because based on what they discussed and what they wanted to do,
Right.
So my opinion again, as I said, I just find it was hazardous in the way what they wanted to do.
Right. Well,
I don't know if it was.
It's fair.
I don't know if it was.
I'm sorry. Carry on.
No, sir. I'm saying I don't know if it was disclosed the type of rescue event they wanted to try, but again, when they spoke it was kind of inappropriate.
Right.
What they wanted.
Whatever it was, you were uncomfortable with it, and you made that clear.
Yes, sir.
Right. I got you.
Yes, sir.
And you then say this: an alternative method was then decided on, and a decision was made to have the TTCG diving department return on Monday, the 28th of February, to offer assistance to the ongoing exercise. Well, leaving aside the unfortunate turn of phrase, did you mean by that your team were going to come back on the Monday to offer assistance in a rescue or something else?
No, sir. The alternative method they decided on was to flush the pipe. And that is why they told us to return on Monday to help in aiding the recovery after the flushing would have been commenced.
You mean by then it was already decided that they were dead?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes. Hands up, please, for those who are interested in asking Mr. Hargreaves any questions. Yes, Mr. Ms. Mutu, did you have your hand up? Not Mutu. Miss Alfonso, did you have your hand up? I was looking at Mutu thinking he was going to, but... Yes, sorry. No, perhaps he should tell us.
Yes, I did have,
right.
Sir, I did have my hand
up. All right,
Mr.
Hargreaves, Miss Alfonso from the trade union is going to ask you some questions. Maybe Mr. Mutu will do as well, but for the moment, it's Miss Alfonso.
From where?
Oh.
From the union. She'll introduce herself.
Yes. Sir, he indicated that he couldn't see anybody else in the room.
Can you see Miss Mutu? Perhaps you'd stand up for a moment.
I'm actually seeing her, yes. I'm seeing her now, yes.
Miss Alfonso is going to stand so you can see her.
Okay. Is that any better? Well, this is...
Yes, ma'am, I can see you, yes.
Right.
Thank
he can
you very
see you
much,
now.
Lieutenant. Good afternoon, Lieutenant Hargreaves.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
My name is Enquiry Alfonso. I represent the interests of the SWWTU, and I have a few questions I would like to ask you.
Yes, ma'am.
Lieutenant Hargreaves, following from the line of questioning of the Honourable Chairman, I want to try and understand the time frame. You say that you received a telephone call at 4:07 on Friday, the 25th. Could you explain, and you received a call that divers were missing in the water. Let's start with, that's your first information.
Yes, ma'am.
But you don't arrive, and I don't mean you personally, you and your other dive team members do not arrive until 4.5 hours later, and a little bit over that too.
Yes, ma'am.
So, would you consider that an emergency? 4 divers are missing, unaccounted for, in the waters off of Paria's facilities. That would be an emergency?
Yes, ma'am, I would consider it an emergency, yes.
Okay. So those of us who may be called upon to be unfortunate enough to call upon the Coast Guard to assist us in case of emergency, why would it take 4.5 hours for the designated dive team? Because this is a designated dive team. Actually, 2. Why would it take 4.5 hours to get from Storbles to Paria's facilities?
Well, ma'am, one, it was the Friday afternoon. I know the majority of the diving department would have been dispersed already, and who probably would have been home in their house. And when that emergency was called, based on the areas of where my team lives, I have to give them a window to respond to the headquarters, to the diving department base in Stobles Bay. And that is what initiated right after.
So let me get this. So you have a diving emergency. 4 divers are unaccounted for. They're clearly not on the surface. One assumes they're not on the surface. They're underwater. And you think a window of 4.5 hours is what? Rapid response?
No, sir, I wouldn't say a window of 4.5 hours.
Okay, but
in our SOPs.
Okay, from the first time
yes, it took,
you received the call, it took you more than 4.5 hours to reach on the location, yes?
Yes, ma'am, because I had to wait on a vessel to carry us down there.
Okay, so there was also a vessel issue, a transportation issue.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let me ask you something, Mr. Hargrave. Is the person or the vessel that you came, okay, the vessel that you came from Storbles down to the location at just before 8:45 on Friday, was that captained by Mr. Ledgerwood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In the trip, how long did that trip between Storbles and Paria's facility take?
I would say an hour and a half.
Okay. In an hour and a half, Lieutenant Hargrave, you knew that Mr. Ledgerwood had come from the site to collect you and to carry you back. Did you know that?
No, ma'am.
You didn't know that leading seaman Ledgerwood had been on the scene before he collected the dive team and yourself?
No, ma'am.
So in an hour and a half, Lieutenant Hargraves, you're the senior officer, you're far senior than leading seaman Ledgerwood. You had no conversation with the leading seaman who had just come from the scene? He didn't tell you anything about the scene that he had just come from?
No, ma'am.
Ooh, most extraordinary. Very extraordinary. So when you arrived on the scene, all you have in terms of information is whatever was relayed to you at 4:07. Missing divers.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
I see. Most extraordinary.
Did you not speak to Mr. Ledgerwood?
When was that, sir?
Well, I thought he came to pick you up.
Well, we had to wait on the vessel. If the vessel came, I didn't know where they were, but they came and we went.
No, when he picked you up and was taking you to berth 6 to assist with this rescue, did he not tell you, I've just been there. There's a terrible thing, you know. These guys were sucked into a pipe, and one of them managed to come out. I was there when he got out. Did he speak to you about it at all?
No, sir. I had no recollection of that information with Mr. Ledgerwood.
He said, did you talk to him at all about what happened, or any information he might have been able to give you about what happened at berth 6?
No, sir.
I want to be clear about this. Are you saying you can't remember, or are you saying that there was no conversation?
I can't remember any conversation with myself and leading seaman Ledgerwood on the way to Paria with my team. I can't remember any conversation we had.
Of course, if he had any information, it's something you would have wanted to know, isn't it?
Well, so let me be honest, yes. The information from the leading hand would have been appropriate, but again, he's not a diver. He may not understand what was going on. So at the same time, based on how information is skewed in the process, it would have been better that I get the proper information when I receive on site, and not from a third party or fourth party.
Well, your loyalty, it does you credit, but I'm afraid surely you would have wanted to know every little scintilla of information from an experienced seaman, who would have been able to at least give you his own appraisal. I understand he had one diver with him anyway. But are you seriously saying that you weren't interested in anything he might have been able to give you by way of information before your arrival?
I wouldn't say I was not interested, sir. That would be inappropriate to say I was not interested.
So help us, please. Is it the case then that he said absolutely nothing to you in the 50 minutes or so that it must have taken him to get you there?
Like I said, sir, I can't recall having that conversation with Mr. Lee.
Perhaps there was a conversation you've just forgotten then. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lieutenant Hargraves, you have a very impressive, well, I'll say a resume, but a very impressive resume of diving qualifications and certifications. Very lengthy and very long. But I noticed two of your qualifications are referred to something called public safety diving. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, public safety diving, doesn't that involve the recovery of persons and or bodies below the water?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in addition to public safety diving certification, which you received fairly recently, 2019, yes? You also have surface support, a specialty in surface support.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Also in public safety diving.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So part of your training and experience is the recovery of bodies or live people, hopefully more live people. So
yes, ma'am.
And in confined spaces too.
No, ma'am.
No?
Public safety does not go into confined space diving.
I didn't say pipelines, confined spaces.
No, ma'am. Confined space is different. Confined spaces is enclosed. For example, cave diving is considered confined spaces. Anything that is enclosed and inability to maneuver properly is considered confined space diving.
And you don't have any certification in that area?
No, ma'am.
Okay. But you have a certification with respect to what's the right term to use here? Surface supply of air.
Right. Surface supply in support of public safety is that public safety diving is considered law enforcement diving, right? And in law enforcement, you have to be able to support from on top the diver in that capacity. So that is what I mean by that is what the certification meant, where that you can support someone from on top the surface.
Okay.
Is not an event of using air supply from a vessel. That is something totally different.
Okay. But your qualification in public safety diving allows you to, your training allows you to effect underwater search and rescue operations, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You also have a certification that allows you to inspect underwater pipelines, yes?
Outside of the pipeline, you can do inspections outside of a pipeline to make sure that outside the pipeline, not inside.
Okay. And that includes remote operated vehicles as well? You have a certification in that?
In ROVs, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I hope I got it right. Not remote operated vehicle?
It's the same thing, ROV. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I hate acronyms. I always get it mixed up. So, when I know you don't have it in your witness statement. When you arrived at minutes to 9, quarter to 9, thereabouts on Friday, did you find yourself on a vessel called Waterworks?
Waterworks?
A diving vessel, a diving assisting vessel called Waterworks?
I could be because I know we had to use one of the vessels to maneuver onto the platform because they were berthed alongside. one of the areas, and the interceptor had to go alongside there for us to come off. So we had to transit through one of the boats to go onto the platform.
One of the witnesses that preceded you this today, Lieutenant Hargreaves, indicated that you were on a dive vessel called Waterworks, and that you were inspecting your team. 5 or 6 of the dive team were inspecting the equipment on that vessel. You will agree that happened?
I can't remember, ma'am. Probably did. I can't remember.
And they said that you were very interested in this equipment that you were not familiar with. Would that be correct?
Well, like I said, ma'am, I really can't remember if I did speak to somebody on the vessel or if I did say that. I can't remember.
No, no. Were you? Yes. Okay, so you could have spoken to somebody, but did you inspect equipment? Did you inspect commercial diving equipment, helmets, umbilical cords, that kind of thing?
I am not authorized to inspect those type of equipment, ma'am, because I'm not trading the equipment. I may have an interest in it because it is something that I did want to do at some point. But for me to inspect somebody else's equipment, it'd be very inappropriate for me, especially if I'm not trained or qualified in using the equipment. I can't inspect somebody else's equipment.
Okay. Did you have an interest to the extent that you wanted to see what it looked like?
Well, again, like I said, ma'am, I did have an interest in becoming a commercial diver at some point. And I wanted to see what it looks like as I see. But like I said, I really can't remember if I did do such on that night in questioning, because like I said, we had to use one of the vessels to allow
Where's
access.
this going, Miss Alfonso?
I just want to know if he saw the equipment.
Well, ma'am, to be honest, the diving equipment would have been laid on the deck of the boat. So I mean, if it is we had to pass, yes, it would have been there to go through. But like I said, I can't pick up somebody else's
We've
equipment.
flogged this subject enough, I think. Can we have another subject, please?
Okay. And I don't want to traverse this area again. You would have formed the view that it was not safe for your team to conduct any rescue using scuba or anything else for that matter.
Well, if you don't want to traverse it again,
but I have one question to ask him based on that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman. Would you accept, because you have aside from the qualifications I pointed you to, you have certification as a rescue diver, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, right? So would you accept, Lieutenant Hargreaves, that if one is to effect a rescue, there may be some level of risk?
Yes.
To the rescuer?
Yes.
He is going to rescue somebody, but there may be some level of risk to the rescuer himself, or if it's more than one person. You'll accept that?
Yes, ma'am, I will accept the risk, yes.
Okay. But your job as the head of the dive team would be to mitigate that loss, or mitigate that risk, or manage that risk.
Yes, ma'am.
Minimize it. Any of those things. That would be your job. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. I must make a proper risk assessment must be done at the site to understand the feasibility of such operation.
And as you say risk assessment, Lieutenant Hargreaves, did you make any risk assessment whether a rescue attempt could be made with the equipment that you may have seen laid out on the deck of a certain vessel, even if you can't remember the name of the vessel?
Again, ma'am, as I said, if a risk assessment was done, it would have been done by the team, or even the team that was there before. Because if there was a commercial equipment boat there in the vicinity, which means the supervisor there could have made an assessment also in that capacity, because he is a commercial trained individual. So yes, a risk assessment would have been done on their behalf and provided information in that capacity to the higher authority for an attempt of rescue to be made.
Okay, but you made no such assessment yourself.
I made an assessment.
It can't be done. Your officers can't do it. Your ratings can't do the dive, and you can't do the dive.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you familiar with a vessel called Fairchance?
Fairchance?
That's a vessel overturned in Chagaramas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you or any of your divers on that scene in April of
Yes,
this
ma'am.
year? In April of this year?
Yes, ma'am. We were at the scene, yes.
Okay. My instructions are that certainly Coast Guard divers dived into that vessel.
Yes.
Okay. And this was a little, well, I don't want to say little cargo, but this was a CARICOM cargo vessel, not a very big vessel. Isn't that diving into confined spaces, Lieutenant Hargrave?
I wouldn't say confined space because one, there's difference between confined space and penetrating dives, right? So a vessel of that nature and size would have considered being a penetrating dive. It is not a confined space because one, the cabins would have been opened, and what we did first was an assessment around the vessel to see if there were any areas where diving could be done inside the spaces based on the size of the space. That was done first, an assessment.
Is it then your evidence this afternoon that the Coast Guard does have the capability to do penetration diving then?
Yes, but not in a pipeline. It's a totally different concept.
You recall that the Fairchance was a vessel that had turned upside down, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're
Yes.
diving with the hull this way and the cabins and accommodation below water.
It would have been the keel on top and the cabins underneath, yes.
Yes, thank you. But your dive team was quite capable of performing that, what turned out not to be a rescue either.
I would say we performed because one, what we identified, there were a lot of debris in the boat that caused us to reach to the diver, to the victims that were in the vessel, because of the amount of debris that was doing blockage of the doors and thing. And I remember that was one of the assessments, that there were a lot of debris. And because of where they were located in the lower space of the vessel, it was very difficult to maneuver down through the debris into that space. So that is when a decision was made to float the vessel in that way.
But wasn't that a very difficult dive, Lieutenant Hargrave, because of the cargo that we had come loose, because of all the things that were loose floating around at the top of the vessel, which was below the water?
Well, again, ma'am, as I said, the assessment that was done by the guys who did the assessment, they came and gave their expert advice on it and say that, this is the most we can do and what is the parameter. Because with the information that we got again, that the survivors, or not the survivors, the victims, they were in the area that they wanted us to look. But again, it was inappropriate,
Right.
and they were actually.
I accept that, Mr. Chairman. I accept that. I got what I wanted from Lieutenant Hargraves. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Hargraves, for your information. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Ramadan.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant.
Good afternoon, sir.
You're in Barbados today?
Yes, sir.
I am Prakash Ramada. I represent the interests of the child of Yusuf Henry and Mr. Kurban, who unfortunately died in the event. Of course, you were very eager for the truth to be told in this matter. Is that true? Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
When did you prepare first your statement?
I believe as soon as the counsels of the state informed me, through the defense force lawyers, that a statement is to be provided.
And when was that?
I would believe, could be August, somewhere around there, sir.
And certainly, by August, you would have known there were serious statements or considerations that the Coast Guard of Trinidad and Tobago prevented in some form or fashion an effort to rescue the deceased divers. You knew that?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Did you put in your statement any denial of that?
Yes, sir, we did. Yes, sir.
You put in your statement that the Coast Guard did not prevent an attempted rescue of the deceased divers.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Now, when did you go to Barbados?
I left to Barbados on the 25th of May of this year.
Oh, you've been there for this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, as a military man, you knew full well, and I'm so grateful to the chairman and, of course, my most learned senior, Mr. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj, at whose feet I've learned and continue to learn, that you, on the way to the scene and the site as you've described it, made no effort to ascertain from persons who already or who had already been at the site to find out the conditions there. Is that still accurate?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Is that part of your military training, to not find out as much as you could before you arrive?
Well, again, sir, like I said, that getting
my question
information
is very different. Is that part of your military training to not ascertain all that you could before you arrive on site?
I would have gotten the information from the commander
So
who would have been on
training,
site at the time.
training. Is it part of your training to not find out?
Of course, it's part of my training to find them, but again, it's a final from the authority.
Part of your training, as you've indicated, forgive me for trespassing, Chairman, you did not ascertain from any one of the Coast Guard's men who had been on site. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You knew when you got to the site that you would be meeting someone in authority. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And who was that person you were expecting to speak or meet and speak with?
I would have believed it would have been the incident commander.
And who be that?
At the time when I met the person, there was Ms. Balkisoon.
Yes.
She was the senior person on site.
Yes.
I would have believed she would have been the incident commander at the time because she was the one giving me the information, nobody else.
That was very easy. Now, having met and spoken with the incident commander, could you tell us, as best as you can, what time that might have been?
I believe we arrived at 8:43. It probably took us at least 5 to 10 minutes. I would believe around after 9 when we met.
Yes.
Because, like I said, there were a lot of...
We got there, right? Just after 9.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see and speak to Mr. Piper on site?
No, sir.
No. But you agree, you said the words that basically an assessment on site, and tell us if it is correct, is the best thing to be on site and making assessments there and then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because a lot could be lost in communication. Isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, even here, there was uncertainty by what your written word was, which I'm sure you would have read before you signed, as to whether you gave an instruction or a recommendation only in relation to Coast Guard's divers or in relation to any diver. You agree with that? Mr. Maharaj so brilliantly handled that. Yes? You agree with that? Yes. Now, Ms. Balkisoon, before I get to that, you said something quite interesting, that there was a lot of confusion in the area that you were operating within. Is that still accurate?
Right, so let me clear up what is confusion.
I want you to be clear.
Right, so because of the, there were a lot of vessels in the area. So when I say vessels, other small vessels, small boats,
right,
and it was very confused. It was a confused area for us, especially to get alongside. So that is what I meant by confusion, in that we couldn't really get a proper boating, so we had to use one of the vessels to boat alongside because of the amount of vessels that was pushed in and out of the area that we were around.
I appreciate what you've just said. So that when you got on board to solid ground, when I say solid ground, a non-floating environment, a platform, there was no confusion there.
I wouldn't say it had any confusion, no. I mean, like I said, I was dealing with one individual.
Right. With one individual.
She was, yes, sir.
Ms. Balkisoon.
She was the one providing, yes, and she was providing the information.
Yes, she was the boss lady. By which time she had already told, certainly you would have known, having spoken with her, that there was a live rescue around 6-ish. At least before 6.
Oh, no, I didn't know that, sir.
So having spoken to the person in authority, you did not know after having spoken to this person in authority, there was a live rescue around before 6 o'clock that evening?
No, sir. I was just told that Mr. Budam was one of the persons that was rescued. They didn't give a timing. There were no timings of anything of that sort.
You are a diver and you appreciate underwater rescue of men who are submerged, to put it mildly. Time is of the most important essence, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, to make your assessment, you will need to know as to how long.
Timing.
Yeah, how long? You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Tell me something. In your experience, you knew the incident occurred, as you told Mr. Chairman, around 3 o'clock, and you were there after 9 o'clock, yeah? Yeah?
Yes, sir.
6 hours having passed. Yeah? Did you form the view that the men were already dead?
No, sir.
No. I want to suggest, because it is the only possible, reasonable explanation, that many had thought and written them off as dead, and therefore there was no urgency to attempt any rescue for them. Tell me if that doesn't make sense.
That makes perfect sense. Sir,
Thank you
because
so much. Mr. Chairman, do forgive me. And I have called you my lordship many times, and I will repeat that.
Pales into insignificance to what I called everybody else, so don't worry about it.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Mirage dealt with this, and I am almost afraid to trod the ground upon which he has walked. But you went there, and you made a decision to not pursue a dive by the Coast Guard. And he asked you a very significant question, and I will explore that. And thank you, Mr. Mirage, for this. Your function, after you had made a clear, definitive decision to not endeavor a rescue by the Coast Guard, was no longer part of the rescue of the men in the pipe. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How many Coast Guards men remained thereabouts on the platform or close to the berth after that decision was made?
After the decision, what our rescue would not be performed?
Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day, we were there until to render any assistance.
Yeah.
So we remained, but at the same time, as I said, no formal plan came to us indicating of our rescue attempt or anything was going to happen at any time. We were there waiting for assistance to help in any assistance possible.
So you were left literally and figuratively in the dark as to what next, isn't it?
Basically, yes, sir.
Yeah. But did you first, forgive me, your Coast Guard, yes, but first you're Trinidadian and Tobago, right? You're a citizen. Yeah? And before that, you're even that you're a human being. Were you deeply concerned about the well-being of the men who had gone missing, about whether they're alive, they're dead, what conditions they were in?
Yes, sir, that would have been going through my mind based on the parameters of what happened.
Yes.
And the urgency, as I said, the most we could have done was I'll just keep asking questions about, what is the next step. And this is where I did indicate, I asked Ms. Baskisoon, and she, concerning, if any required us again for anything, because at the same time, they were not giving us any clear information of if our attempt was to be going on or if our attempt. All I saw, as I said when I reached, was that they were divers in the water in commercial use, put on a riser. And I believe or use that to say, well, hey, probably an attempt is being done.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, I want to tell you, first of all, I think the country is grateful to our protective services. You put your lives on the line for us every day. Police, Coast Guardsmen, Defense Force, firemen, and EMT. I just say these things. But what I want to inquire of you is this. And you just told us that you made inquiries of the authority there, Ms. Balkisoon, as to what next. Did she respond to you, what next?
No, sir.
No. So there you were. You two are an authority figure. You are the most senior Coast Guardsman on site. Is it not true?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Ms. Balkisoon was the most senior authority from Paria on site. Is that also true?
I believe so. She was, because, like I said,
Is what it is. Okay? So you believe that she was, and she's the person that you spoke with, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, what time did you transmit to her that you, as far as you're concerned, could not authorize a dive by your Coast Guardsmen? What time was that?
That would have probably been, I would say, between. It was a little while after. So I believe between, after we spoke, she carried us to the barge, and where the incident happened. Because, like I said, we were on the platform, so we had to transverse to the barge.
Yes.
And then she showed us around the area of where the tanks of the LMCS divers were.
Sir, with
the
all
barge.
due respect,
I just trying to ascertain. I'm trying to get a timing, because, again, as I said, I don't want to be incorrect.
Oh.
I want to, so, because, like I say, so I would believe between, I would say, by 9:20, 9:30.
Yes.
In that aspect, because the walk from the platform to the barge probably took us.
So we cannot have the luxury of time. Just like the gentleman who died didn't have the luxury of time for all of this. My question is, right, approximately what time was it that you transmitted your decision to Ms. Balkisoon that the Coast Guardsmen, you could not authorize a dive by them? 9:30ish, 10 o'clock?
It would be before 10 o'clock, yes.
Before 10. But between 9:30 and 10, you think?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, when you arrived, you saw men in the water, divers, swimmers, whatever, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you see any effort made after you communicated to Ms. Balkisoon, any effort to dive into the pipe? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No. Did you make an inquiry, as you have already told us, what next? Listen, men in there, you know, as a diver, every second counts. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Did you make an inquiry from her? What next?
I did ask
about
about
divers to take place?
No, sir, I didn't get that. I just asked what about the emergency plan.
Yeah. So
And,
you never asked her what is the next dive? What is the next effort going to be made to save these men?
Well, actually, they were the ones to provide the information, because they were there before.
And having not provided to you as a senior Coast Guardsman interested as a Trinidadian, a human being first, you made no inquiry, when are we going to implement anything? Isn't it?
No, sir, I did not inquire.
Of course. But tell His Lordship, Mr. Chairman and other commissioners, all of Trinidad and Tobago, after you communicated your decision, you cannot tell us that any effort was made to dive into the pipe.
No, sir.
No. Now, how many Coast Guards men were on the scene after you communicated your decision that no Coast Guardsman will be permitted to go into the pipe?
My whole team was there, sir.
How many?
10.
10. A little army, isn't it? I don't know about. Well, you know, if it's a small island, yeah. 10 is a large number of military men. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Several of whom were armed with machine guns, correct?
No, sir. The diving department was armed with machine guns.
None of them had machine guns?
The squadron department, the squadron men on the vessel, they were the ones.
My question is, none of them had guns on the scene?
Yes, sir, the squadron were armed.
Yeah. You know what a bouncer is? The term bouncer.
Yes, sir.
Bouncer.
Yes, sir.
Right. You know what an enforcer is?
Yes, sir.
Right. You know, sometimes they don't have to say a word, the boss man there, and he says something, and the fellas just in the back lay back. As Mr. Gilbert puts it, moving heavy. You said it earlier, the minister. You said the minister travels heavy.
Right? You've become Mr. Gilbertson again.
Did I? I've known him for 35 years. Don't tell me I'm not mistaken who he is. Yeah. Right? You understand the concept, right? To be fair to you, you do not know what Ms. Balkisoon told men who were in the water who wished to assist in a rescue. You do not know what she told them.
No, sir.
No. What you do know is that the communication, as you've told us before, was between Coast Guard and who? Who?
Paria.
Yeah. But you always standing around.
Yes, sir, we are there.
Yeah,
Like I said,
yeah,
you were standing around
yeah.
willing to assist.
And after, just to be clear, after that communication of your decision, there was nobody trying to go into the pipe again. Isn't it true?
Correct, sir.
Yeah. Now, sir, you use the term sucked into the pipe. Suck suggests what? Differential pressure?
A suction.
Yeah, differential pressure. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You, in the many years, even before you became a Coast Guards man and you went into your diving, and since that time till today, can visualize any rescue into a confined space as a pipe? Can you even visualize that?
With the proper training and equipment,
Yes.
yes, it can happen. Because, like I said, confined space diving is what cave divers do.
No, I understand all that.
And,
Let's keep it to the pipe. Let's keep this pipe straight,
Okay.
okay? And stay within it, okay? You could visualize that happening with the proper equipment, as you've told us, proper training,
yes, sir.
and the will to do it. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you ascertain from anyone on site, seeing that you were there, first of all, interested in rescue, as an officer of the state of Trinidad and Tobago, that there was that capacity in your numbers? I don't mean Coast Guard, I mean in the numbers who had, the coalition of the willing, if I may put it like that, who were present. Did you ascertain whether there was anyone with that capacity, training, equipment?
No, sir. Nobody at that time came forward
You had
to say.
given up hope altogether about a rescue because the Coast Guard did not think
The witness be allowed to answer the
Just
question.
a moment. Mr. Ramadar, you can make your speech later on. All right? I'm going to permit you to make a speech later on.
Oh.
Looking forward to it. But
I did not know.
But
I did not know.
But
Yes.
please don't make it now. Just ask him questions.
I'm most grateful, but I thought there were questions, but in the question there may have been the inkling of a speech. Now, I don't mean to speechify you, Mr. Hargrave, right? But what was my question? Yeah?
It wasn't a question, it was a speech, I keep telling you.
Well, Mr. Peterson has successfully almost derailed me, but I will not get completely derailed. Now, sir, you haven't made the decision. Help me with right? You haven't made the decision that the Coast Guard couldn't and would not go. Did you ascertain whether any in that number of persons who were there, some of whom would have been the water in and out, as we shall call them, the coalition of the willing, had the capacity, that is the training, the equipment, to go in and save lives? Did you?
So as I said, if such information were to come out, Ms. Balkisoon would have relayed such to say, hey, we have these people on standby that are willing to assist and want to attempt such. At that time, I can say that nothing of the sort was brought to my attention,
right.
And we were just there waiting for further instructions.
And
All right. Let me just ask you this, please. Leave aside the 10 divers that you brought yourself. Were there many divers there in the course of that evening?
When they say many divers, as in commercial divers?
Well, any divers at all, to start with. Were there a large number, I say a large number, a significant number of divers present during the course of that evening?
I saw 2 vessels, 2 commercial vessels, 2 dive commercial vessels were on site.
Yeah, well, I'm less interested in the number of vessels.
I can't see the number of divers, so I don't know how much their teams would require. I can't see.
Let's be clear. There were probably around another, 10 at least, other divers present, other than your own 10?
I can't make that as an assumption of how much, but yes, there were divers present also in the commercial vessels.
And you
But
saw,
I can't say how much.
all right. Well, let's say it's 6. I believe there were more than that, but never mind. Let's say there were just 6. There
Yes,
were 2 vessels fully equipped with commercial diving equipment.
Yes, sir.
And did you, as the most senior officer present and in charge of the Coast Guard present on the scene, did you speak with Miss Balkinsoon, who was the most senior person present on behalf of Paria, as to what use might be made of those divers and their equipment?
No, sir. She did not indicate to me whether those...
No. I want to mind what she indicated to you. Did you say to her, look, Miss Balkinsoon, we are not able to effect this rescue, but it's clear that there are commercial divers here who can. What should we do? You and me, let's work it out. What we're going to do. There are men down there. What are we going to do? Did you ask her that?
No, sir.
Did you make any suggestions at all as to how they might be rescued?
I did ask a question, yes, about how the rescue attempts would have been made.
And the response was?
I didn't really get an answer.
You didn't get an answer. So let me understand this then, Mr. Humphreys. Between the time when you made it clear that none of your 10 divers were going to carry out any kind of rescue, which you tell us was sometime between 9:30 and 10 o'clock that evening, between that time and when you finally left that night, what were you actually doing?
We were just standing by waiting for any information concerning our rescue. And we were told to stand by to help assist in anything going forward. And I believe I said in my statement that I believe it was around after 11. Let me just get back clear to that.
As a matter of fact, you were never asked to do anything. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I was not asked to do anything.
After you made it clear you were not going to subject any of your divers to any kind of rescue attempt, and you tell us that you were put on standby by Paria, you were not actually asked to do anything.
Yes, sir.
And as a matter of fact, you did nothing.
Yes, sir.
Do you need any more?
Permit me, please. I shan't be long. No. Mr. Hargreaves, you said something quite interesting to all of us earlier. Just to remind you, you said that you had made efforts to speak with Christopher, the survivor. Is that still true?
Yes, I did ask about his welfare when I said that I wanted to speak to him, because how he was the person who was rescued. And I was told that he was in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I believe that they were not allowing anyone to see him.
Yes. And to be clear with you, we understand your reputation precedes you, sir, that you are a man with specifics. You're a very specific person, scientifically minded. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Who is it there that didn't want you to speak to him?
I really can't recall who is the they, but I know, like I said, I was passing the information through Ms. Balkinsoon.
Yes.
To get information.
So I believe the short circuit, the long version. Somewhere along that line, you got from Ms. Balkinsoon, who was on your end, that there was a reluctance for you to speak with with Christopher. Isn't that accurate?
I would believe so, yes.
Thank you.
Because again.
Thank you. Now, you said also something quite interesting. Do you know Mr. Kurban's son attempted rescues for his father and his brothers in water? Do you know that?
Did I know if he attempted?
Yes, to rescue his own father and his colleagues.
No, I was only told that he helped with Mr. Budram. I didn't know about the other.
You knew he had actually gone into the chamber, correct?
You
I'll
mean
put it as
the
gently as I could. Because you're not saying that you knew he went into the pipe. You knew he had gone into the chamber, correct?
the habitat? Yes.
Yes, habitat. But he was acting erratically.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. In other words.
I mean, he was emotional, very emotional, very, very
Of course,
emotional.
your daddy dying, and he's right there, and you have all of the resources of Trinidad and Tobago available, and nobody going in to save his own father. What do you expect him to be?
All right.
I'm sorry.
all right.
I'm sorry. I lost my dad, so I understand. So, you know, Mr. Peterson could talk about cameras.
Yes, all right.
But I have heart.
And look, I'm not going to get into a spat over this, but you do need to just confine yourself to asking questions
Of course.
at a time. As I've said to you already, I will give you your opportunity to make your speech at the conclusion of all of this, all right?
Yeah.
And, you will have that opportunity.
Of course. But you use the word erratic.
Yes,
You understand? That's a specific term you used.
Yes, sir. Because he was using a lot of explicit language.
Right.
He was.
Obscene.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
cussing.
was.
Yeah?
Yes, he was.
And in fact, apart from the obscene language, he was basically, what are you all doing? Isn't it? What is going to happen? What is the plan? Anybody going to help save the men? Isn't that what he was about?
He was not talking to specifically the divers as in us, because yes, we were there, but he was speaking in general on the deck of the LMCS barge.
Right.
And,
How
yeah,
far
that is
were
what
you from when he was speaking these obscenities and other things?
I would say about 3 feet.
3
because
feet,
at that time,
right in your face, right up.
no, I wouldn't say at that time we were actually understanding that COVID was still around, so we were not really speaking in close proximity, but 3 to 4 feet apart. Yes, he was.
So
And,
you were exercising COVID protocols, yeah? Yeah? You were concerned about COVID protocols?
Well, sir, I don't want nobody speaking in my face in that manner.
Right. So, in other words, he was literally within your space.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. You were offended by that, were you not?
I wouldn't say offended, because like I said,
back off.
No, I didn't.
Did you back off?
No, I didn't.
So you maintained the protocols with the space of 3 feet?
He walked off eventually.
Eventually, I'm coming to that.
And after he walked off, that was the last time I saw him.
You were an authority figure. Did you at the time know that he was intimately involved in rescue operations?
I was not intimately. All I know that he was the person that rescued Mr. Budram. That's all I was told.
It never came to your attention that his father was in the pipe?
No.
Nobody told you this?
No.
No.
The names of the persons in the pipe were not disclosed at that time to me.
That's all right. We're not talking about names here. So when did you first...
But you said specifically his father. So how would I have known his father was in the pipeline if names were not provided?
Oh, okay. That's fine. You appreciate somebody, you could know somebody's relationship, father, son, without knowing the names. You know that, right? Just to humor you a little bit. You know that, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. When did you first learn that this fellow who behaved erratically, that his father was in the pipe?
I believe that would have been after the names were given out of the persons who were.
When?
That would have probably been
Wednesday? Sunday? Saturday?
I can't remember when.
So you say eventually he walked off?
Yes, eventually he walked off, yes.
Did you do anything after he walked off?
Well, yeah, I went back to Ms. Balkissoon to get information again, like I said, sir.
Yeah. Listen, all right, we get that. So you're going to Balki soon. Did you find out who this young, upstart, erratic behaving person was?
Of course, I did state in my statement that she introduced me to him.
Right, I'm not interested
So
in your
yes, she
statement now. We
introduced
need
me
to
to
know
him.
your live evidence.
Yes, I know who he
Yeah.
was.
Okay. Did you ascertain whether he was a person capable of doing the very things that you had said your Coast Guardsmen could not do? That is
No,
to
sir.
dive into the pipe. Huh?
No, sir.
Miss Balkissoon didn't volunteer that to you, did she?
No, sir.
Now, remember I asked you about bouncers, right? And you know what bouncers, men who are there to enforce things, right? You agree? Who are the main
Yes, sir.
authorities on site that day? Give me the name. Not the names of persons, but authorities. State authorities.
On state authorities,
Yes.
to be honest.
I thought you were all along.
Well, I am, yes, but at that time, I only knew of myself. When I said myself, I would say the Chantabelle Coast Guard because no other agency was provided saying that, we have, say, fire services, we have this, we have,
Police. Or police even.
no, or police, correct. No other state agency.
Although, and they giggled earlier, private security for Paria.
Paria Private Security, I believe, was on site.
They were with
And
guns.
I can't say. I can't say.
Why can't you say?
I can't say because I didn't see them, but I know they were on site, but I didn't because
Oh.
I didn't see them. I didn't see them, but I know that normally those pipelines would have security on it. But
All right, we could go along in speculation, but we shan't. Question: you are the most visible armed security agents of the state on site. You agree?
yes, I would say so. Yes.
And not just that. You had an interceptor boat right there. It's a fast little boat, right? You carry guns and everything on that, correct?
Yes, sir. But the men did not come off the vessel. They were on the vessel.
We're talking about
They never came off the vessel.
Yeah, in the area of this catastrophe. And there was a larger Coast Guard presence, a military boat, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Patrolling up and down.
No, sir. They were not patrolling.
They were anchored, of course.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And of course, you know from your wide experience and years in the Coast Guard that that boat carried a lot of resources. Men, machine, material, ammunition, guns. Yes?
Well, yes, it's a vessel. It's a vessel. Yes.
Yeah. It's a military vessel.
Yes, sir.
And we joked a bit earlier. It carries artillery.
I don't know about the artillery, but
You don't have big
okay,
guns
yeah.
with large bores.
So if it have, I am not.
Hold on. No, if no, you were there, you're a Coast Guardsman. You are not aware that the diamond vessels carry fixed, high, Gilly, what's the word for it?
Yes, sir, but the vessel was nowhere in vicinity. That vessel was nowhere close to the dive site. So what happened? That was a little way off of it. They were not in the presence of
No, we know they
any.
couldn't come and park by the boat. We get that, but it was within sight.
And to be honest, yeah, they was inside, but
Thank
they were
you.
barely
That's all I
visible.
want to know. All I want to know, did that vessel provide any assistance in terms of material, men, or anything to you?
I can't. No, not to me. So no.
Sir? Looking back on things, as you were the authority from the Coast Guard and representing the state of Trinidad and Tobago on site, how would you rate the importance of rescuing these men that evening?
High importance.
High, well, we have low, medium, high, highest even. Where do you put that?
At highest.
highest. Looking back now, all that you today know, would you have done it differently?
When you say differently, as in the trying to be a Coast Guard, or you mean?
How? Because you are part of the Coast Guard,
I
you're
be-
part of the
right, so-
society. Would you not have spoken
Right.
better with Ms. Balkisoon to get more information, find out who are available, and to say, look, fellas, are you willing to risk? You know, this is something that we can
No.
achieve.
To be honest, willing to risk, it would have put me at a disadvantage because one, in our SOPs, we are not to perform such a rescue because it would have made me
Responsible.
incapable.
Make you
Yes, it would
responsible.
have made. And if it is now
Hold
that
on. You'll answer my question. It would have made you responsible. Correct?
yes.
Thank you very much. No further questions. That's what this is about.
Right. Yes, please. Ms. Persaud-Marage is going to ask you a question now.
Lieutenant Harvard, Kamini Persaud-Marage for LMCS. Are you hearing me?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a few questions for you. Can you say whether you appreciate the difference between a rescue and a recovery?
Yes, I would appreciate the difference, but to say a rescue, one, you have to be on site to perform an immediate rescue, which means, say, for example, something happens on spot and you are there, you can perform a rescue one time because you are on site.
Okay, so a rescue, let's just break this down in terms of what we're dealing with. We have some men in a pipe. Yeah? Agreed?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Your understanding of a rescue would mean that there would be an attempt to save their lives. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. As opposed to recovery, which is not necessarily to save their lives, but to recover whatever is in that pipeline, inclusive of deceased bodies.
Well, yes. I mean, if we recover them alive, also could be said, could be used too widely too, because, like I say, it does cover the parameters of rescue also. So a recovery of somebody is also either between alive or deceased. So it depends on how you use the term.
Okay, so at the night in question, at around 9 p.m., let's just make it simple, around 9 p.m. when you would have gone on site, your understanding was that you were there for the purpose of a rescue of men, not
Yes,
a
ma'am.
recovery.
No, a rescue.
All right. Might the witness be shown paragraph 7 of his witness statement?
Look at paragraph 7 of your statement.
And you would have read your statement.
Yeah.
Is that before? Okay.
Involved you mean members involved in the recovery operation?
Right. So you're saying in this paragraph, upon your arrival at berth number 6, you'd have met with Catherine Balkisoon, who you came to learn was a team lead engineer at the operations at Paria. She appraised me of the incident and identified her team members involved in the recovery operations. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So again, I'm going to ask the question, did you appreciate that your presence was for the purpose of rescue or recovery?
Well, like I said, it depends. It will be rescue, yes, but again, we also use the term recovery in the same context. So it's not to say
it's interchangeable for your purpose.
Yes, because like I said, we have been on dives where we perform the recovery of live personnel. It's like I said, it's how you use the term.
And how did you intend to use the term when you're describing
Well,
recovery
at the same time, in the best interest, you have to be very optimistic of what was going on. So yes, the term recovery in my statement would have been as of rescue purposes.
Okay.
because, like I said,
I'm going to put to you that the use of recovery operation was not intended to mean rescue. And you can answer that.
Say that over.
The use of the term recovery operation by you in your paragraph 7 was never intended to mean rescue.
Why would you say
a
that?
Live rescue. You can answer that.
Yes, I believe a live rescue would have been possible, yes. But like I said, it's how you use the term recovery. Because you can recover somebody alive also.
All right.
Is a difference, as I said, in how you use the term. Some people take it in a negative or in a positive. It depends on how you use it. But at the same time, search and rescue, search and recovery, they're words, they're used differently. So it depends on the person interpreting it.
Yeah, you see, it's quite an important question that you're being asked by Ms. Persaud Maharaj, because factoring in risk, putting your own men at risk to effect a rescue, is different from factoring in putting your men at risk for recovery, isn't it?
Well, let me state that probably I used the wrong term in that context.
No, just answer my question first, then you can say whatever you like. What I want to know is, when you're factoring risk, rescuing someone, you might be prepared to take a greater risk than if you're simply recovering a body. You follow what I'm asking you, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Do you agree with me that in assessing risk, it depends on whether you think you're rescuing someone or recovering a body?
Like again, yes, but again, it depends on how you use the term. So that's why I said I probably use the wrong terminology in that concept.
Whatever the terminology, rescuing someone who's alive as opposed to recovering someone who's dead is a difference in approach taken by you or any first-line rescuer in any sphere. Would you not agree? There is a quantitative difference between the two.
It depends on how you use it.
Dead or alive, I don't care which term you use. If you're recovering someone who's dead or rescuing someone who's dead, it is different from recovering or rescuing someone who's alive. The risk factors are different, aren't they? Do you have a difficulty with this question?
No, it's not a difficulty, sir.
Right, well, please answer it then.
Yes.
Yes, what?
Well,
yes, there's a difference between the two.
Yes, there's a difference in the two.
Thank you very much. It wasn't so hard. Thank you, Ms. Persaud Maharaj.
Thank you. Now, Lieutenant Hargraves, you've said to this commission today that you've spoken to Ms. Balkisoon. Is there any other person that you would have spoken to from Paria, to the best of your recollection?
That night?
On the 25th?
On the 25th? No.
No.
Not to my knowledge.
Might the witness be shown at page 1361? That's the evidence of Mr. Colin Piper, paragraph 82.
He can't be shown it. You can tell him what's in it.
Okay. I'm going to read for you
He hasn't adopted
what
it.
Mr. Oh, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to read to you what Mr. Piper says. At his paragraph 82 of his statement, he says this. At about 16:45 hours, I was advised by either Visham or Leandra that the TTCG had arrived and had commenced a search and rescue pattern in the sea in the vicinity of berth number 6. I was also advised by Visham and or Jonathan that the Lieutenant Hargrave indicated that when the incident was reported to them, not many details were given, and they did not have the appropriate equipment on site to enter the water or the hyperbaric chamber. but that a dive crew was on its way to berth 6. Would you like to change, having heard what Mr. Piper has said, would you like to change your evidence that you just gave to the Commission?
Change what, ma'am?
I ask you if you've spoken to anyone else, and I've just read to you the account of Mr. Piper.
But I didn't speak to Mr. Piper.
No, he's not saying that you spoke to him. Allow me to read it back to you very slowly. At around 16:45 hours.
Right, we better have it on the screen, otherwise no one's going to follow it. So just put it on the screen, please.
Page 1361 of the witness bundle. Paragraph 82. So, can you see that on screen, Mr. Lieutenant Hargrave?
No.
1363.
1361, please.
Paragraph
82.
No, I can't see it.
Permit me to read it back to you. And I'll read from the part or the portion that it pertains to you. I was also advised, this is Mr. Piper saying, that he was advised by Visham and or Jonathan that Lieutenant Hargraves indicated that when the incident was reported to them, not many details were given, and they did not have the appropriate equipment on site to enter the water or the hyperbaric chamber, but that a dive crew was on its way to berth number 6.
Right. So breaking that down, did you speak to somebody called Visham or Jonathan?
No, I don't know who's that. Visham? I don't know.
Did you indicate that when the incident was reported, you didn't have very many details?
Well, like I said, yes, and when the Coast Guard operations spoke to me, they told me that there was an incident at Paria where 4 divers was missing, and that is all I was told, and that we supposed to scramble a team to head down to make an assessment of what was going on. We didn't know. I didn't, and that was, we got the call after 4. I was at 8. I was at Defense Force headquarters, and I didn't reach down there. I don't know I never spoke to anybody from Paria.
All right. Anyway, you didn't have all the appropriate equipment on site to enter the water or the hyperbaric chamber. Is that correct?
At what time that was?
Well, I'm assuming that this relates to the period of time when you were when he was first asked about it. As far as I'm aware, that's before you arrived on site. This is at 16:45.
16:45?
Which I believe to be on the Friday. So I don't think we can take that any further.
Yes, please,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
In the fact of the matter is, you didn't arrive until much later in any event, did you?
That was correct. So I was nowhere near in that vicinity.
And when you did arrive, you had your divers with all their equipment, but it was clear that that wasn't the equipment that was necessary to effect any kind of search.
That is correct, sir.
Yeah. Well, I think we.
All right. Were you at? So earlier you answered to Mr. Ramadar, I think it was, that you were the person in charge at the site from the TTC.
In charge of. Yes, I was the most senior. I was the most senior person on site. Yes, from the Coast Guard. Yes.
You're the most senior. But prior to your arrival, would you be able to say who was the most senior officer there?
No, ma'am.
No. At any point in time, were you informed by Paria that you are to take control of that site?
No. And who by Paria would say such a thing?
Well, it's in the statement of Mr. Piper at paragraph 109 that the TTCG should take control of the site to safeguard Paria Kenson personnel and to take control of the ongoing rescue operations. And this would include preventing LMCS divers from entering the pipeline.
Oh, really? I know nothing of that. Nobody indicated to me that Mr. Pipers told the Coast Guard because, like I said, we are not authorized to take control of anything. We were there to help and assistance. Nobody told me about taking control of anything like that.
Paragraph 109. It's on screen.
I'm trying to read it honestly, but like I said, I never had no conversation with Mr. Piper about taking control of anything.
I accept SAPE, but I must ask you of that. You said that the initial report that was given to you at around 4 p.m. that day, that there were 4 missing divers. You've said it repeatedly this afternoon.
Yes, there were four missing divers in Paria. Yes, 4 missing divers. That 4 divers were missing.
At around 4 p.m. the first time you heard of this.
4:07 was when the call came in from our core operations. Yes.
All right. Did you learn subsequently there were actually 5 divers missing and 1 recovered? Or throughout this incident, your understanding is that there were 4 persons?
It was just 4, yes. So, only when I reached on site, then I was told about Mr. Buram. But again, they did not say if he was a 5th or if he was one of the 4. They just said he was one of the persons who was rescued. So nobody told me he was a 5th individual.
May I ask you, was anyone else from your team, that is to say, the group that were finally brought back to berth 6, the 10 divers, yourself, Mr. Ledgerwood and his team, were any of those people, other than yourself, in touch with anyone from Paria?
No, sir.
To your knowledge?
No, sir, not to my knowledge, because, again, as being the senior person on site, and then I had a chief petty officer with me and petty officers. Of course, we had full control of our team and the men on the boat, and they knew that nobody couldn't come out of that vessel unless it had to pass through one of the seniors or myself, so they were on the vessel at all times.
So any communication between Paria and yourself or your team would have been through you? Is that the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you think there's even a remote possibility that somebody else from your team would have had a conversation with anybody from Paria without your knowledge?
So that I can't say, because I know the trust of my men, and they know exactly how I operate. And if any information had to go through one of them, and I doubt Paria would have had their numbers or anything, because I know strictly I was the only person with a cell phone on the site at that time.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think that would be all for this witness that I have.
Your turn, Mr. Mutu.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Hargreaves. My name is Jason Mutu. I represent the interests of Paria, and I only have 1 or 2 questions for you. In the course of giving your evidence earlier today, you spoke about a meeting that was held on Sunday, the 27th of February 2002, at which LMCS 2022, forgive me, at which LMCS proposed to utilize a method which you say created further opportunity for greater casualties. You recall giving that evidence?
Yes, sir.
Yes. What's not in your statement is the reasons why, in your opinion, the method proposed by them created a further opportunity for greater casualties. I'd like you to tell the Commission, in your own words, why you consider their method one which would create that situation.
Can I say what they proposed?
Please do.
To do?
Tell us, in your own words, as far as you're aware, what they propose to do and why you feel that in your professional opinion, why that created a greater risk.
Right. So what they proposed was lowering a diver into the pipeline on a rope and pulling him, or you touching him to a pulley or something like that, and using him and lowering him on a rope into the pipeline. And on hearing it, I believe, like I said, I wouldn't advise putting a rope to tie on to somebody in a 60-foot vertical pipe, because it would have either caused some type of infraction or pain to the diver itself, and then we'll have another situation on hand. I think that was one of the main reasons why, to me, that when I said it was, I didn't like it because of the rope. That rope indicating you want to lower a man into the pipeline on a rope. I asked, because when they did their emergency plan, when they showed the emergency plan, it didn't state clearly how it would have been executed. And then when they decided, and that is when they said about the rope issue. And I think that was the main concern for me about lowering a person into the pipeline with the rope.
Right, and you communicated that concern to Paria on the Sunday, didn't you?
Well, they were all there. They were all there in the meeting. So they asked about it. And like I said, I gave them my opinion that, and LMCS didn't question to say, well, we will try a next method or anything like that. Or, because like I said, they were there. We were all I was in virtual, they were sitting there. And I didn't have, when I objected to the method itself, I told them I don't like the method. They didn't indicate, okay, well, we will try something else in that capacity. So,
did you form the view that the method really was not properly thought out?
I would believe so. I believe that, yes, it wasn't really properly thought out, because, like, again, a rescue plan would not involve, being honest, lowering a man on a rope with, into a pipeline and using, whatever methods to pull him back out in a vertical 60-foot drop. Again, is gravity you're looking at.
Okay. Just one other area. Randolph Archibald, he's the Health, Safety, Security and Quality Lead at Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited. He's given a statement to the Commission. He says he spoke to you at approximately 2300 hours on Friday the 25th of February. He says that Lieutenant Hargraves eventually advised me that the TTCG would not be able to attempt a rescue into the pipeline. He advised that such a dive into the pipeline was too high risk and that there were too many unknown factors. Now, I know that the assessment as to the dive is consistent with what you've said today, but earlier on you were asked whether you spoke to anyone at Paria other than Ms. Balkisoon. Is it possible that you in fact did speak to Mr. Archibald and that you have forgotten?
To be honest with that, I really can't recall talking to Mr. Archibald, because first time I'm actually hearing the name.
Right.
I don't know if it is the information could have been relayed, but like I said, I can't remember speaking to Mr. Archibald personally, because I really can't recall it. I really can't recall that.
Okay, so is it possible that it did happen but you can't recall now, or is it the case that you didn't speak to him?
Honestly, I would have known who I spoke to, so I don't recall speaking to him, but like I said, I know I was speaking to Ms. Balkisoon alone.
Okay, thank you. May I have one moment? No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mutu. Just one matter arising from that. Was it your understanding that the person who was going to be lowered in a rope was going to drop, not free fall, but in air down a pipe till he got to the bottom, held by a rope? Was that your understanding?
Well, yes, sir, because we didn't know how far the water or how far water or oil or anything in the pipeline would have been. We didn't know how far up the level it would have been in the pipeline.
Who's we? We, the Coast Guard, or we generally?
As in we, the Coast Guard. I did not know.
You didn't know, right? So when you say we, what you mean is you did not know where the water level started in that pipe.
Correct.
That's why you had an apprehension about someone being lowered in a pipe by a rope, hopefully not
Yes, sir.
around their neck. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anything arising from that? No. I think Mr. Wilson wants to ask you a question.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Hargreaves. I just want to take you back to the examination by the lady from the Seaman Waterfronts. I heard you mention on numerous amount of times that you conducted a risk assessment and or you'd conduct a risk assessment. I want to sort of interrogate your dive planning. Are risk assessments always a part of your dive plan?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And do you have any formal training in risk assessments?
Yes, sir.
So before you execute an activity or a rescue, do you use any risk assessment tools or any other tools like your decompression tables and stuff, incorporated it into that risk assessment?
Yes, sir. You must configure to your tables based on the amount of time and length that you would want to attempt to dive, and based on the depth also too. So yes, that would have been conveyed in your plan for a risk assessment.
What I'm trying to get at also is your risk assessment a verbal exercise, or is it a proper sit down and have a dive plan before you execute?
Well, you must sit down and plan out the dive, because one of our rules is you plan the dive and then you dive the plan. So what we will do is plan it and then execute it after.
How long does a risk assessment or dive plan usually take when you're going into an emergency type situation?
It depends on the environment, sir.
Okay. So again, back to, and I appreciate the difference between confined space and penetration diving into a pipeline. So for the example of going into a confined space or into a vessel, how long would that plan would have taken on site? Do you do it at Stobles or do you do it at site?
Which one is that? The pipeline?
Not pipeline.
Or the vessel?
Yes, yeah.
Right. So what we did, that vessel would have been done at Stobles Bay, because what we have gotten is the schematics of the boat and ascertain what entry points can be used to gain access, and based on the areas of entry, is it that through a scuttle or probably through a door in that way? And what we would also look at is, based on information from the individuals who were on the boat, given that there were a lot of debris. So we want to make sure the assessment of the vessel was safe also to penetrate in that matter, based on the amount of debris that they were carrying at the point in time when the boat was over them.
Thank you. Are your risk assessments documented and archived?
I would say it wouldn't be documented as in documented and archived. Like I say, we would speak about it, draw it out on a board, and understand, what is the parameters to do. But no, it is not documented to see and archived in that capacity.
Okay.
But we do write it out, but for our knowledge.
Okay, no problem. I just want to switch over to Coast Guard diver training. I understand you're the head of the diving team in Coast Guard. So what I want to sort of interrogate is, from when you get an initial qualification under the Coast Guard management system or practices or standard operator practices, do you guys do competency assessments for?
Yes, sir.
How often?
So one of the criteria, so in becoming a Coast Guard diver, one, it is an 8-week program, but to be a part of the diving department, yes, you have to be recruited under being one of the top tiers in the training, and your competency will go through basically a 6-month period as an inductee into the department, so which means you'll be qualified and trained to a certain level. The majority of my divers are qualified as dive masters and assistant instructors, equivalent, and public safety divers. So you will have to go through an extensive period of training and competency and dive time.
Just excuse. Sorry to interrupt. I want to offer you there's a difference between training, qualifications, and competency. So
Yes, I understand.
Okay. So
competency means also that you must be able to do what we do, especially in diving department. So yes, you will be taken out with operational dives, and you'll be given tasks to perform, and you will be literally you will be educated in how you operate also too.
All right. So where I was going with the competency assessments, do your competency assessments, does it interrogate rescue dives, penetration dives, confined space dives, recovery body dives? What does the assessments cover? What do the assessments cover,
So operationally, the assessments would not cover one confined space. We have done limited penetration dives because, like I say, it's not something common that we do. But one of our main common training is rescue and performing rescues. For example, a lost diver, and how we would mark, based on information, how we would mark the area using tidal streams and understanding how tide works and what we would use in ascertaining a proper direction of where to start a proper search.
Yeah, okay. Outside of the competency assessments, do you guys drill, and the frequency of those drills?
I would say not as much because one, the diving department is always on call. When we do get a downtime, our drills will more ascertain to equipment checks and making sure that the equipment is properly, because they don't want to go on a site and the equipment is not working properly. So I know for sure that what we do make sure and check when it comes to our drills is making sure that our equipment is spot on at all times, and we have no wear and tear that in event of a dive that it becomes an incident for one of our own.
Okay, thank you for that. And lastly, I just want to touch on the phrase where you said once you ascertain that you were not willing to make a rescue, that you remained on site to render assistance. Do you have a medic on your team or anyone with medical training? One personnel or two personnel?
Two personnel, sir.
And that could possibly fall under rendering assistance in the event someone comes out injured or something. Coast Guard is an option.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have two EMTs on my team.
Okay. I heard you use the phrase incident commander. Are you familiar with incident management or that philosophy?
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with the phrase command and control?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one of the things, let me back it up. Even out of Paria, have you ever been part of a incident management or managing an incident for any other operator in Trinidad and Tobago?
Not in Trinidad, but in Dominica, I was the person for the Hurricane Maria incident, where I had to, I was deployed on that to do an assessment of the port of Dominica for our vessels to render assistance.
Okay, thank you. So lastly, on that point, under rendering assistance, and you're familiar with the philosophy of incident management, and in your experience, have you ever seen the Coast Guard utilized in a security capacity, enable essentially securing a site where there's an incident from any errant vessels, anyone coming in to take photography and stuff? Now, I ask you this understanding that you were the dive team, but were there any other vessels performing that security?
Not to my knowledge, so no.
Okay.
No, not to my knowledge.
And you were not instructed by, and were you instructed by the IMT to perform security at any time?
IMT?
The incident command team. So,
I really didn't notice an incident command team, but no, nobody of that nature told me to perform any type of command and control in that, if you want to put it in that way, to anybody.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Hargreaves.
Thank you, Mr. Hargreaves. Just one thing, you said in answer to my colleague, Commissioner, you do understand about risk assessment, and you carry out risk assessment as part of a dive plan invariably, all right? Can I just ask you, who did you get your risk assessment training from?
The OSHA Academy.
OSHA.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Right. That's it for today. Thank you very much. We can lose the link now. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Hargreaves, for coming along, albeit to wherever location you are in Barbados. I hope the weather there is as good as it is here, and I appreciate your contribution. Thank you very much indeed. All right, so he can be cut off. I was hoping, as you know, to deal with Mr. Seals today. We are not now going to be able to deal with it. I think we've all had enough today. And he's likely to take at least an hour. So it seems to me we're going to have to lose him today. He will be advised, Mr. Pegas, he will be advised as to when he is needed. It will not be this year. It's going to be in January now, all right? So if you could tell him, we will certainly advise him. I think he's still here, isn't he? Yeah, he's still here, so...
I would relay the message, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Well, convey, as I will ask my secretary to do, our apologies that we didn't get to him today. I had every intention, as you know, of doing so, but we have not been able to.
We totally understand.
All right, good. Well, tell him we'll let him know when he is required. Now, as I've indicated, we will not be sitting tomorrow. We will sit at 9 o'clock on Wednesday, please. 9 o'clock on Wednesday, when we will hear first of all from Catherine Balkisoon. And we will have Mr. Piper, please, at around, he need not come until lunchtime. All right, so I don't want to inconvenience people unnecessarily, but he can come at lunchtime and he'll be called as soon as we've finished with Ms. Balkisoon. That's the program for the rest of this week. It's Balkisoon, Piper, and then Mohammed, who will give evidence. Mushtaq Mohammed, is it?
Yeah.
Not, right.
Mr. Chairman, I said after lunch, but I realize your lunch is not Trini lunch. You say Mr.
My
Piper
lunch is a very different lunch to everyone else's.
You say Mr. Piper to come after lunch, so...
Yes, I think if he comes here for 2 o'clock,
2 o'clock,
that would be sensible. Thank you very much. All right, good. That's what we will do. Thank you very much, everybody. Please feel free to pack up and go. I'm going to grab my papers in the usual way. Thank you.